All right. I think that I am live. And if I am, whether you're watching this on Twitch or YouTube, welcome. I'm just getting things set up and I will share my screen in just a moment. I'm just going to verify that I am streaming, make sure it's working. And I think it is. This is like only my second ever stream. There's a network error. Cool. I think it's working. While that does its thing, reload player. Huh. Having my buddy check to make sure that we are doing good. There we go. I see myself now. Sweet. Gosh, okay. I was just eating some Chex Mix because that is a healthy snack. Yes, sir, dude. I can see the chat. Perfect. Good deal. Now, before we get started, as Nate knows, I am awesome at spamming myself. Adjust the lighting a little bit. I got my hoodie on. I'll leave my hood off, but as soon as Kali Linux turns on, I got to throw my hood up so that we're ready to do some hacking. And in the meantime, let me go spam myself in various places. That's definitely one of my gifts. And Nate said, "You're good. Can you see the chat?" I can, and there's a little bit of delay, Nate. So you'll notice if I'm talking to you, I think it's like a, 20 to 30 second delay. So it's a little bit hard to communicate in real time, but I'll keep my eye on the chat. Let me just jump here and I'll just advertise our Discord real quick. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to show you guys a cool spot where you can join me. Hopefully this works. Hopefully you can see my screen now. I'll post a link to this Discord in the description of the video, but this is a Discord my friend Jack started. I'm an admin on it. It's called the Work Smarter Discord. It is small, but it's growing, and this actually started in many ways with two of us meeting on Facebook chat just to encourage us. Actually, me and Nate, who's on here right now, and we were studying, still are studying for the OSCP, and we began meeting, and that grew, and then one person who started meeting with us was Jack Neely, and he started this Discord, and it's awesome. So I'm going to go spam myself on here just to let people know that we are live. Hey, everyone, I am live. Come join me. To twitch.tv, Tyler_Ramsbey. We got that. I'm going to go spam myself one more spot, and that is on the great Facebook world. I'm just going to do that on my other monitor. And I will post the same thing. I am hacking stuff live. Come join me. Twitch.tv/Tyler_Ramsbey. And KevTech said my smile scares him like I want to eat his pizza. That is awesome. All right, we're going to be hanging out for the next 2 hours. At least that's the plan, as long as the stream and everything works. I'm going to get it pulled up on my side so I can monitor the chat. And we are going to dive into it. And what I want to do is I just want to walk you guys through... I'm just reading Discord. I want to walk you guys through my whole process. This is going to be for... Well, the beginning is going to be for beginners. So if you've never done TryHackMe or Hack the Box, or even use Kali Linux, I'm going to show you how I boot it up, and then we're going to dive into what's called the Throwback Network on TryHackMe. I'll share a little bit more, but I bought lab time. I haven't even opened it, so in many ways this is an unboxing experience, and we're going to see what we can cover in the next 2 hours. So first, what I use is Oracle VirtualBox. There's other things that you can use for running VMs. I use VirtualBox because it's free. So I'm going to boot up Kali Linux. You can download the ISO if you just Google Kali Linux. Actually, VirtualBox. I think you can download a .ova for Kali Linux itself, and it will load it into VirtualBox for you. And I will also be keeping my eye on the chat because I know the thousands of you who are going to be watching me. At least I got 2 people. That's sweet. I thought it was just going to be me and nobody Nate, but apparently there's someone else hanging out with us. So appreciate it. If you don't mind sharing, just share who you are or why you're watching. And feel free to jump on or disconnect or jump on later. As long as all works, Everything's going to be recorded, and I will be posting this after the fact on my YouTube channel. If you don't know my YouTube channel, just Google Tyler Ramsbey on YouTube, and you will find me. So here is the glorious Kali Linux. Now, to connect to either TryHackMe, Hack the Box, you have to connect usually through OpenVPN. You can also download boxes through VulnHub, which is where you download the box or the computer to your local machine. The benefit of doing that is it's a lot faster because you're not going over the internet. But we are connecting to Throwback, which is actually a network of different machines. It's actually an Active Directory network, and we're going to do some Active Directory pen testing, so we need to connect to that. So first, I got to switch over to root. And I will just say, if you do download Kali Linux, if you also Google Pimp My Kali, there's a GitHub repository. And I know it sounds a little strange, but Pimp My Kali helps fix a lot of issues that Kali Linux has. And it also re-enables you to be able to log in as root. Apparently you have corrupt history. We can just honestly remove .zsh history. That should fix that issue. Let's cd to our downloads file. I'll just show you what's there. We are going to connect to this Tenebrae 93. That's my name on TryHackMe. Feel free to add me. In Lab Tenebrae, this is the Hack the Box VPN. But we're going to be on TryHackMe. So it's just open VPN, and you download that. Now, to get your VPN file, if you go to TryHackMe, they actually have a room that walks you through it. But you just download the configuration file, and it's super easy to connect. It's just a matter of doing that. So let me open a new tab. We'll rename this VPN. And let's go ahead and open up TryHackMe. And let's get started. So I'm going to bring this browser here. And let's dive into TryHackMe. So you'll notice I'm a top 1%er. Doesn't mean anything. I still feel totally new to all this stuff. I'm learning every single day. But if you've never started TryHackMe, it's cool because it does record and there's different levels you can get to. I only have 2 friends, so if you want to add me, go ahead and add me. Looks like Nate was working on Flatline. And it also shows your skill matrix, which is also pretty cool. I don't know how it's all calculated. I suppose different rooms, different modules you do, it's going to increase that. But let's go ahead and dive into the network for today. Oh, I forgot. Since we're hacking... You can't hack without a hoodie on. So if you haven't already, get a sweatshirt, throw on your hoodie, because clearly that's going to make you a better hacker. Let's dive down here. Throwback. Here is what we are going to do. So you'll notice there's different computers. We have domain controllers. We have user machines. We have a mail server, it looks like. Some security stuff. So we'll just go through this. Once again, this is kind of my first time looking at it besides the introductory stuff. Hoodies up. Good job, Nobody Nate. Love it. And welcome to the third person, whoever jumped on here. Throwback is an Active Directory lab that teaches the fundamentals and core concepts of attacking a Windows network. The network simulates a realistic corporate environment that has several attack vectors you would expect to find in today's organization. The lab uses a structured, handheld approach to guide users through exploiting the network. Let me just pause that. Often when I do a box, I like to do it without a tutorial, but when you're learning something new, it is good to do some of this handheld type stuff. And Active Directory is pretty new to me, at least exploiting it. Now, I've utilized Active Directory in various roles and different jobs that I've had. But as far as exploiting it, one thing that's been helpful for me is if you look up TCM Security, they have an entire course on kind of ethical hacking. And part of that course is Active Directory. And as we dive into this, I also want to encourage you to take notes as we go through this. And I want to show you my notes. I use OneNote, and you'll see I have this hacking notebook. And as I do different courses, as I do things on TryHackMe, I am taking notes. So when I'm going through a box, I have all my stuff here, and it starts off with the different stages of hacking, right? So we have information gathering, scanning, enumeration, exploitation. One of the things I want to highlight to you is this Active Directory. If you see all these things over here, this all comes straight from the TCM Security course. When I went through it, I took notes. And there's a good chance we'll be going back to this as I go through here, because I believe Throwback Network is going to cover a lot of these things. So I've done some of it, but it's been a while. As you can see, February is when I was going through some of this material. But I would encourage you to take notes, whether it's OneNote or some other note-taking application. My brother uses Microsoft Paint. I don't know if Microsoft Paint is the best note-taking thing you should use, but some type of note-taking application so that you can take notes so you don't have to re-Google everything when you find something cool. I also do this whenever I'm working through a box. I record every box and what I'm doing. So when you work through boxes on TryHackMe or Hack the Box, I encourage you to take notes here so you can always look back, or maybe you're in a box that's similar. You can go back to a box that you remember doing in the past, and that will help you through the process. All right, I'm just going to pop open Discord. I'm going to move Discord over here just so I can monitor the chat on there. And once again, if you haven't already joined, it's the Work Smarter Discord, and I encourage you to join us there sometime. All right. Let's see. The use of Windows to manage authentication and user identities in IT infrastructure today is so commonly used. As an aspiring security practitioner, it's crucial to understand how this works and the network's common weaknesses. Now, I already shared this. I'm not going to read through all of this, but these are the things we are going to cover. No idea what we're going to get through today, but we will see. This network has been designed to have multiple attack paths, and now it looks like it's just guiding us through accessing the network. And when you use TryHackMe, they do have a web-based Kali Linux machine or an attack box. I encourage you to get your own Kali Linux machine so you can customize it and so you can learn to troubleshoot when tools don't download right, because that seems to happen. I swear like 99% of the time I get frustrated because things don't download right, but it's in the frustration that you learn. So this is just asking us to download the configuration file. We already connected to OpenVPN. We blah, blah. I've done all this stuff. If you haven't done it, I encourage you to slow down and go through those different parts. Black box versus white box. Welcome to the Throwback Network. Similar to the start of mini games, you must choose how you will tackle the challenges to come. But fear not, brave adventurer. You may ask for help as you explore or adjust your difficulty at any time. And I'll be asking you guys for help. So I just want to make it known, I am not in any way an expert. I am learning this as we go through it. So if you know more than me and you're in the chat, tell me when I'm doing something wrong or when I can do it more efficiently. Or I know, Nate, you're going through this alongside of me. So if I miss something, please call me out so I can learn. The black box approach. In the black box approach, only the first few tasks, 1 through 3, matter. Pwn the network and claim your destiny. Capture all the flags. Now in a CTF or capture the flag, a flag is usually a text file that verifies you've received access to a certain area. So usually there's like a user flag that shows you have low-level access, and then a root flag which shows you have admin access. Capture all the flags available and gain your certificate. Okay. The white box approach. Journey with a guide and follow the tasks laid out to you in order. Learn and gain experience, explore the throwback dungeon, and grow as you progress. And that's probably the approach I am going to take. One, I think you learn better that way. And one thing I've learned about learning is don't ignore the basics. So even if you've learned a topic multiple times, right? I've done multiple courses on ethical hacking, on Active Directory, and I like to think I know the basics. Whenever I start a new course or like this Throwback Network, it is tempting to skip through all the beginning stuff and all the basics. I would just encourage you not to do that. It's good to slow down, to remind yourself of the basics. And there's often something I've noticed that I missed in other courses that just adds more flavor to my understanding of what I am looking at. Read the above text. We did it. Perhaps you want to go forth alone for the next bit. Maybe you wish to rejoin your party, and we are having a party right now. I got 5 people, dude. I am like, I don't know if you guys ever heard of John Hammond, but John Hammond, I'm coming for you. I always got to call him out in my videos one day. He'll never watch my videos, but that's okay. John Hammond's awesome. If you're interested in learning cybersecurity stuff, if you Google John Hammond, I'm just going to actually comment his name in the message. If you Google him, look him up on YouTube, he has really good content and really good at presenting the content. I've learned a lot from him. Kill chain. This network has multiple attack paths, some of which are stated here. However, to start from the beginning, follow all the room tasks in order. As a beginner, we suggest starting from the top and working your way down. However, everything kill chain. Okay, I think this is a grammar issue. I think I could beat, thank you, Nate. I'm pretty sure I cannot out-hack John Hammond. I bet I could outbox him. You can put that down. That's the next YouTube fight, me versus John Hammond. That is one battle against him. I think that I would win. Kill chain leads down the same end path. So this is just walking us through, oh, these are just a different paths, walking us through everything. We're going to start from the top. I bought Lab, and since I paid for this, $60 for 30 days, that's $2 a day. I want to do all the content. Flag submission panel. Oh, okay, so this is something we'll go back to. Use this task to submit all the flags found in the Throwback Network. So nothing we need to do right now, but oh, look at that. So we got LinkedIn, Twitter. So that's going to be the open source intelligence. That'll be fun. Most CTFs don't have that component. I think I've done 2 or 3 that maybe have that type of component. I believe the Christmas event on TryHackMe had a little bit of that. That'll be fun to do and learn. Back to basics. Oh, wow, a lot of text. Do I want to read through all of this? I'll kind of scan this. But if you're new to Active Directory, I encourage you to check it out. It is truly used by most top companies. Vital skill to comprehend when attacking Windows. It is recommended to have a basic knowledge of network services, Windows, networking, and PowerShell. I want to pause right there. When it comes to cybersecurity, me and Nate actually talked about this in an interview we did about the OSCP. Cybersecurity, generally speaking, is not an entry-level field. So I'm in the cybersecurity world right now as my profession, but just got into it. I've only been in it for a little over a week, but have been passionate about it much longer than that. To be good at cybersecurity, you need to have a really good foundational understanding of all things IT. So even if you have a bachelor's in cybersecurity, which I have, don't expect to land as your first role a cybersecurity role. Now there's some exceptions as like a SOC analyst. If you look that up, that's SOC, not like the socks you wear on your feet. There's some exceptions such as that, but as a general rule, cybersecurity is not an entry-level role. So just know it is good to understand the basics before you try to move on to pen testing or ethical hacking. The detail of specific uses and objects will be limited as this is only a general overview. What is Active Directory? So here is what I want to highlight for you. We'll read through this. Active Directory is a collection of machines and servers. People sometimes ask me, what is the difference between a server and a computer? A server is just a more powerful computer. In many ways, it's still a computer, just hosting different services on it for computers in the domain to connect to that are a collective part of a bigger forest of domains that make up the Active Directory network. Active Directory contains many functioning bits and pieces, a majority of which we will be covering in the upcoming tasks. To outline what we'll be covering, take a look over this list of Active Directory components and become familiar with the various pieces of Active Directory. Okay, once again, if you're new to this, brand new, I encourage you to take some time and just Google each one of these things. We'll cover the first kind of sentence. Domain controller. Domain controller is a Windows server that has Active Directory domain services installed and has been promoted to a domain controller in the forest. You can promote something to domain controller if you are the domain admin. You can actually set up your own Active Directory lab. The TCM security course actually walks you through setting up an Active Directory lab with the domain controller and 2 users as VMs, and that will really help you understand Active Directory. Active Directory data store. The Active Directory data store holds the databases and processes needed to store and manage directory information such as users, groups, and services. And here is an important file to keep in mind. This is the database that contains all the information stored by default in this location and is accessible only by the domain controller, obviously for security reasons. But if you can compromise the domain controller, you can compromise this database and you can get a lot of information there. Forest overview. A forest is a collection of one or more domain trees inside of an Active Directory network. It is what categorizes the parts of the network as a whole. Once again, if you're new to Active Directory, take the time to familiar yourself with some of this vocabulary right here. A few things I want to draw your attention to. You probably heard of domains. Organizational units will be an important thing as we go through this. Trust will be important because we're going to abuse trust as a privilege escalation path. At least I'm pretty sure we're going to, if I remember from looking over the course. Objects are your users, groups, printers, computers, shares. So if you have a computer in an enterprise, so if you work at company.llc, whatever it is, your computer is an object in their Active Directory domain or forest, truly. Domain services, that's DNS, domain schema, blah, blah. Overview of users, domain admins. Already talked about them. They are the gods of Active Directory. They can do everything. They can ruin everything. If you can escalate to domain admin, you have pwned Active Directory. Service accounts. They can be domain admins. These are used. These aren't things you log into. They're generally used by services to communicate. APIs often use them. Local admins. This is what you probably are at your workplace, even though it is bad practice. If you're on your own computer, you're a local admin, which means you have administrator rights. But one thing that confuses people is a local admin is not the same as a domain admin, right? So if you have local administrator access on your computer, it doesn't mean you have all the power of a domain admin. And if your company gives you local administrator access on your computer, that's bad practice for many reasons. Domain users, these are your everyday users. This is what you should be. They can log into machines. And often when you're exploiting Active Directory, the goal is this, right? Become a domain user, become a local admin if you can, eventually elevate to domain admin. You can use service accounts to do that because if the server account runs as a privileged account, you can use that as a means to elevate your privileges. We have domain policies. We'll just read the first sentence. Policies are a big part of Active Directory. They dictate how the server operates and what rules it will follow and will not follow. You can think of them like domain groups, blah, blah, blah. Domain services, we got LDAP. That is the identity type stuff. We have certificate services, DNS. Okay, this is a long wall of text. I said you shouldn't skip the basics, and you probably shouldn't. So once again, if you're new to Active Directory, make sure you take the time and look some of this stuff up. Domain authentication overview. Let's read all of this, and then we're going to dive into it. The most important part of Active Directory, as well as the most vulnerable part of Active Directory, is the authentication protocol set in place. There are two main types of authentication in place for Active Directory, NTLM and Kerberos. I always say it wrong the first time, Kerberos. Since these will be covered in more depth in later rooms, we will not be covering past the very basics and need to understand how they apply to Active Directory as a whole. For more information, check out the Attacking Kerberos room, which I have done that room, and I do recommend it. I think it's a free room. Let's see. There's a subscription option on, I don't want to give any spoilers. There's a subscription option on TryHackMe. Oh, you have to be a subscriber. I do recommend subscribing. TryHackMe is very much worth the subscription. And NTLM, default Windows authentication protocols, uses an encryption challenge and response protocol. I don't think I finished up there, but it uses tickets, and we'll be abusing that ticket process throughout this. The Active Directory domain services are the main access point for attackers, that is us, and contain some of the most vulnerable protocols for Active Directory. This will not be the last time you see them mentioned in terms of Active Directory security. Now that we understand the basics of Active Directory, we can utilize this knowledge within the lab environment to get hands-on practice with these concepts. Boom. We are moving our way through this. Okay. Let's get offensive, and let's go ahead. I'm just going to pull this to the side. Pull up Linux right here. PowerShell. Maybe I'll actually do this on, well, I'll just read through it. PowerShell is the Windows scripting language and shell environment that is built using the .NET framework. I haven't used much PowerShell until recently. I was much more into Python, and I didn't do much with Windows privilege escalation or hacking, which is why I'm going through this course. PowerShell is a lot cooler than I thought it was. Once you get around the verb, noun, and how things relate, and once you learn how to Google really well, you can write some cool PowerShell scripts. I was able to do some PowerShell scripting to fix an unquoted service path vulnerability on like thousands of machines just through PowerShell and deploying it through another mechanism. But PowerShell really is a powerful scripting language for both offensive security, but also for defensive security. This also allows PowerShell to execute .NET functions directly from its shell. Most PowerShell commands, called commandlets, that's how you say that, are written in .NET. Unlike other scripting languages and shell environments, the output of these commandlets and objects, making PowerShell somewhat object-oriented, which if you're interested in pen testing, you don't need to be a programmer, but you do need to learn the basics of programming and scripting. And I always encourage people to choose at least one language to get good at. For me, The first language I started learning is Python. And once you learn how to script or write in one language, you'll be able to read other languages and kind of put things together and edit them as needed. So you don't need to be a programmer. It helps if you are. I'm not. But you do need to understand some of the basics of scripting and programming logic. This also means that running commandlets allows you to perform actions on the output object, which is piping, which makes it convenient to pass output from one commandlet to another. The normal format of a commandlet is represented using verb noun. This is what threw me off for a while coming from like the Python world, but it does make sense. For example, the commandlet to list commands is get, obviously English class, verb, command is your noun. Common verbs to include get, start, stop, read, write, new, out. And let me just open up PowerShell, not File Explorer. Let me open PowerShell 7, and you can download PowerShell 7. PowerShell 7. The cool thing about PowerShell is it can be used on Linux or Windows. When you use it on Linux, some of the functionality is limited, but it's still solid. So we'll just run through some of the stuff. And if you have if you have a Windows computer, you have PowerShell, just search for it and you can follow along. So if we type git command, just show you the output. Mine's going to be, I might just stop this. Mine's going to have a little more because I have Azure connected. If you're a student or if you have a .edu email, you can set up kind of a free Azure lab, which is what I did, and then I connected it to PowerShell. So PowerShell basics. Now that we've understood how commandlets work, let's explore how to use them. The main thing to remember here is the get command and get help are your best friends. The get help displays information about commandlet. To get help about a particular command, run the following: get help command name. And the Microsoft documentation for PowerShell is actually really good. It is the first spot I would encourage you to turn if you're trying to figure something out. So we can do it on get command, since that's the example. I'll show you one thing that I like to do. If you do get help, get command, and then pipe it to online. Oh, maybe it's not pipe it. Is it just a switch? Yeah, it is just a switch. It wouldn't make sense to pipe it. But you'll notice it will pop it up over here. And I just like the HTML version better. In my opinion, it's a lot cleaner, a lot easier to navigate. And then you can look at it alongside of your shell right there. So it's just the dash online to pull it up online, depending on what you're looking at. That's something that I've found helpful personally. Okay. Understand how this works. Passing the examples flag, and that's if you do the dash online is automatically going to show you the examples, and that's what I find most helpful, to see examples of how PowerShell works. Using the get command gets all the commandlets installed on the current device. The great thing about this commandlet is that it allows for pattern matching like the following: get command verb dash and then a wildcard, or get command wildcard dash noun. Running the get command new to view all the commandments for the verb new displays all the following. So let's go ahead and run that. You can do it on yours as well. And whenever you watch a course, whether it's a YouTube video or something else, follow along, right? It's not best to just watch it on your phone. It's good if you're able to do it alongside the video. So I'll try to go slow as we do these things. If you already know all this, you can just hang out and make fun of me when I type something wrong. So get command new. And then we're going to do a wildcard. And it's going to show all the commands we have that start with new, which I think is pretty obvious. Object manipulation. In the previous task, we saw how the output of every commandlet is an object. If we want to actually manipulate the output, we need to figure out a few things. Passing output to other commandlets and using specific object commandlets to extract information. Pause here. If my audio or video ever gets off, someone yell at me in the chat. I think we should be good, but I can't hear feedback. So if it ever does sound off, please interrupt me. The pipeline, I already mentioned that the pipeline is used to pass output from one commandlet to another. A major difference compared to other shells is that instead of passing text or string to the command after the pipe, PowerShell passes an object to the next commandlet, which is what I think makes PowerShell powerful. Like every object in object-oriented frameworks, an object will contain methods and properties. You can think of methods as functions that can be applied to output from the commandlet, and you can think of properties as variables in the output from a commandlet. To view these details, pass the output of a commandlet to the get member commandlet. All right, I know that sounds confusing. An example of running to view the members for get commands. Let's go ahead and do that. Get command, get member, and so let's just walk through what this is doing. Get command is running the get command. Let's just run that. It's showing us all the commands that are going to be installed. Yours is going to look different. Like I said before, I probably have more commands because I was messing around with Microsoft Azure, but let's do get command. So it's taking that right there, and then it's doing get member. So it's taking the output and then running get member on it. The switch member type, and then we want the method. We'll show what this looks like. So we have this different stuff. We have the name here, member type, method, because that's what we specified, and then the definition. And these things will begin to make more sense when you work in PowerShell. For now, I just want you to understand a little bit of how those pipelines work. I'm guessing that's what they want us to understand here. From the above flag in the command, you can see that you can also select between methods and properties. Creating objects in previous commandlets. One way of manipulating objects is pulling out the properties from the output of a commandlet and creating a new object. This is done using the select object commandlet. Here's an example of listing the directories and just selecting the mode and the name. So get child item is basically like doing dir, right? If you ever use CMD, or ls actually works in Linux. Trying to think of what ls is technically called. There's a name for that. Nate probably knows what it is. So Nate, write in the comments what it is, like this shorthand where ls actually equals get child item essentially. But that's what that does. That's what get child item does. So let me just run just get child item. You'll see it does the same exact thing. No idea. Okay, well, good enough. There's a special name for it. It's like some type of shortcut. Oh, it's this. Alias is what it's called. So ls is an alias for get child item. It's not actually like a commandlet by PowerShell, but it's alias. Yep. I think we came to the conclusion at the same time, Nate, because of the delay in the video. Okay. So get child item does this. Now if we do get child item and we want to pipe that, and we're going to select object, property, mode, and name, and you'll see the mode is right here, and here's the name. So it's going to get child item, but it's going to select two properties. It's going to show us the mode and the name, so it's going to make it a little more simple to look at. So hopefully you saw how that worked. We took mode and name, get child item, that created an object when we're piping that to select just our properties, mode, and name. You can also use the following flags to select particular information. First gets the first, whatever you specify the object. Last, unique, skip. Filtering objects. When retrieving output objects, you may want to select objects that match a very specific value. You can do this using the where object to filter based on the value of properties. The general format using this commandlet is verb noun, where object, blah, blah. The second version uses the $_ operator to iterate through every object passed to the where object commandlet. So that is similar in Python. You can do it in Python. It's different how you would write it, but it's to iterate through a list of items or objects. The where operator is a list of the following operators, contains. This is where it gets a little bit different than Python, because instead of using like the sideways caret keys, the greater than, equal than, or equal, EQ if the property value is the same as a specified value. So rather than that, which is like what it is in many programming languages, or that, in PowerShell it's EQ. So 2 equals 2. Well, obviously it doesn't work that way, but that's essentially what it's doing. 2 would equal 2 would be true. 2 equals 3 would be false. GT if the property value is greater than the specified value, right? So in like Python languages, it is like 2 is greater than 1. And I still remember from school, like that's an alligator, right? Trying to bite that number. That has always stuck with me since elementary school, so that's cool. For a full list of operators, use this link. Here's an example of checking the stop process. Let's just do this. Get service. Let me show you the output of that. That's going to show every service on your computer, but we don't want every service. We want to see what services are stopped or what services are running. So you're doing get service. You're piping that to where object, which we already talked through that, where the object has the property status. And let me just scroll up so you can see where it says status. Status is right there. That is a property. Oh, went too far down. Oh, where status equals, so rather than this or this, we're doing equals stopped. Or we can do, because this is new, the way you can go to previous commands by just using the up arrow on your keyboard. So when I do things that I'm used to, I'll try to slow down and just explain that. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did miss the tech. So that's why I need people like Nate. I'll show you guys on YouTube what he's talking about because you can't see the chat. When I did 2 equals 2, it said unexpected token, an expression or statement, because I needed to do the dash right there, and then it will show as true. And so if we did 2 greater than 1, it should show true, but if we do 2 greater than 3, it should show false. So that's how some of that logic is working. Sort object. When a commandlet outputs a lot of information, you may need to sort it to extract the information more efficiently. You can do this by pipelining the output of a commandlet to the sort object commandlet. The format of the command would be verb noun pipe sort object. Here's an example of sorting the list of directories. So remember, get child item, we already did that, it just does that. If we do that and sort object, you'll notice it's doing it by alphabetical order, of course, starting with anything with a period before it first, which are going to be the hidden directories. Now that you understand the basics of PowerShell, we can get to offensively use PowerShell to enumerate and exploit. All right. Introduction to offensive PowerShell. Well, we have all this information. Now, how can we apply it to attacking a Windows network? We can utilize offensive PowerShell to enumerate and attack Windows and Windows Active Directory. Basic offensive PowerShell. A majority of offensive PowerShell will come from using modules like Active Directory and PowerView. I've used PowerView. I didn't know there's a module called Active Directory, right? I'm learning something. PowerView I've used quite a bit. That's what they use in the TCM security course. To enumerate and exploit. However, PowerShell also has a few commandlets that you can use to your offensively. Okay? That's a grammar issue. Okay. Using modules in PowerShell. PowerShell has the ability to import modules such as Active Directory and PowerView to expand the list of commandlets available. To import a module, you can either use import module, or you can use /module. Examples of importing modules. I think I want to probably do this on my Linux machine, which I think Kali, doesn't Kali come with Power? Well, that's obviously running process. This is where Google comes in handy. I'm trying to remember if Kali Linux comes with PowerShell installed or I have to install it. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Nate. So it does, and it comes with PowerShell 7, which is what I was running. I'm going to do the rest of this in Kali Linux just so I have it here. And once again, to do that, it was pwsh is how you launch PowerShell when you're in Linux. Okay. Examples of importing modules. Import module. Of course, we need the module. Note the / only work with PowerShell script files. And you'll notice PowerShell script files are .ps1. Like Python is .py. That's just the file extension. So if you see a .ps1 file, you know that it is PowerShell. All other modules will need to be imported with import module. For example, Active Directory can only be imported with import module. Get AD domain is a commandlet that pulls a large majority of the information about the domain you're attacking. It can list all the domain controllers for a given environment, tell you the NetBIOS domain name, the fully qualified domain name, and much more. Using the select object command, we can filter out some of the unnecessary objects that may be displayed, like containers, group policy, blah, blah, blah. So I'm guessing I need to download Active Directory. I don't think you can just import module. I know if you have the PowerShell gallery type stuff, you can connect to that. Yeah, so let's go ahead and just download this Active Directory module. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. And look, we're in Microsoft Docs. Is a PowerShell module that consolidates a group of commandlets. You can use commandlets to manage. If you don't have, you need to download the correct. I wonder how you do it on Linux. Oh well, maybe the course will explain it. I don't want to get stuck in that. So this is just showing these different commands that we can run. Get AD force is another command that pulls all the domains within a forest and lists them out to the user. Actually, I do want this. Let's go ahead and figure out how we can do it. Install. Nate, if you know how to do this, interrupt me and tell me how. Officially, the Active Directory module for PowerShell 7 is only supported for Windows 10. However, as it turns out, you can also install the PowerShell module on Linux and macOS. You can leverage PowerShell remoting to manage Active Directory. Also, to use this, like to use the module he's talking about, first we have to use PowerShell remoting. The cool thing about PowerShell is it can function in many ways, like SSH, where you can connect to a remote computer. I do that all the time in my current job. So that would be one way that we would do it, is we would use PowerShell remoting to connect to it. 1 second. My cat wants to be part of our party. Let me move him. He is black, so he's a black cat, so he kind of fits with the hacking that we're doing right here. Maybe he'll help me with PowerShell. You probably can't even see him on the video because it's so dark down here. Okay. Let's jump back to this. Get AD force is another command that pulls all the domains within a forest and lists them out to the user. This may be useful if a bidirectional truss is set up and may allow you to gain a foothold in another domain on the LAN of the local area network. Just like get AD domain, there's a lot of output, so we'll be using select object to trim the output down. So get AD force is creating an object, and he's piping that to select the object of domains, and that's just going to list just the domains from the AD forest. Get AD truss is the last built-in PowerShell command that we will be discussing. After this, we will move over to PowerView. Get AD truss provides a ton of information about the truss within the AD domain. It can tell you if it's one-way or bidirectional truss. This is important. It's going to come up later. Who the source is, who the target is, and much more. One required field is -filter. This is required in the event that you want to filter on a specific domain or trust. If you do not, like in most circumstances, you can simply provide a asterisk to wildcard the results. Okay. PowerView, part of PowerSploit, which I believe comes on Kali Linux, doesn't it? Yeah. It's under Windows Resources. Sweet. So I should just show you guys what I did. I need to walk through this just if you're new to Kali Linux. Locate's a super helpful command. It's just like on File Explorer. Oh, it's popping that up. On Windows, right, if I search for hello, Windows is weird because now it tries to search the internet and stuff, but usually it searches through your computer. That's kind of what locate does for Linux if you're in the command line. So if I want to locate like shell, because there's going to be reverse shells that we do, we can see all the places there's shells. So how I found PowerSploit is I just did locate PowerSploit to figure out where it is at, and we can see it's in user, share, Windows, resources, and there we have PowerSploit, and there we have some PowerShell fun stuff. So PowerView, part of PowerSploit by PowerShell Mafia, is an excellent suite of tools that can be used for enumeration and exploitation of an AD domain. Today, we're only going to cover the PowerView's ability to enumerate information about the domain and their associate trusts. You can get the PS one here. I'm pretty sure we already have it, but let's go ahead and check. So I looked for PowerView, and you can see we do have it. So it's in PowerShell Empire, which we'll hear a lot about. Whoops. Let's go back. My computer is bugging out. I think it may be something with Twitch and OBS. I don't know if I lost connection. I'm going to hang out here just for a second. There we go. I think I got disconnected for a moment. And looks like, hey, a question. Papa Churro. Dude, love the name, first of all. And yeah, if you guys do have questions about other stuff, I'll feel free to pause and talk about them. He said, hello, would you say WGU opened up doors for you? Did you have experience prior to WGU? Good question. Now, just for context, I know not all of you may know what WGU is. WGU is Western Governors University, and what sets them apart from other schools is it's online, but it's competency-based education. Now, the best way I can explain that is in many colleges, and I actually worked at a college for a while, and I have an associate's degree, a bachelor's, and a master's, and I've done doctorate work. So I like to think I know the world of education a little bit. The way colleges usually work is to complete a class, you go through an entire semester of sitting down with lectures and doing, really fun group projects, and then you take tests throughout the semester. And if you have a high enough grade, you pass at the end. What makes competency-based education different is the goal of a class is to demonstrate competency. And one of the primary ways you can do that, at least in IT, is to get an industry-level certification. So for WGU, many of the courses are built around a cert, and they're including your tuition. So for example, I got the Security Plus certification as a student at WGU. I took a class, and the class you could either attend like your traditional lecture type stuff and work through the material, but the goal was pass the Security Plus. They don't care how you get that knowledge. They just want you to demonstrate you have the knowledge by passing Security Plus. What I loved about that is I could form my own educational pathway, and I knocked out my degree in 7 months. Now, I already had an associate's degree, so I transferred in credits, but my associate's degree was not IT related. So I did all the IT courses and knocked out my degree in 7 months, saved time, saved money. Now, to answer your question, did I have experience prior to WGU? Kind of. And what I mean by that is I've always had an interest and a passion for IT. Matter of fact, me and Nate, who's on the stream, when we were in high school, I think was it high school? Were we in high school or like middle school? I don't remember. We were young, like 13 years old, 14, 15, around that time. I took my hood off, so I'm not a real hacker, but the hood was annoying me. We actually got banned from touching computers at our school because what we would do was at night, we would go on a website called hackthisSite.org. I'm just going to pull it up. I think it's still around, and it looks the same as it did when we were on it. Yes, it looks exactly the same. I think, Nate, you can testify. HackthisSite.org was like the original TryHackMe, Hack the Box before it was cool, and there was different challenges on here. So me and Nate would stay up late at night doing Hack the Box. I think we communicated over like MSN Messenger. We were talking back and forth, and then we would, of course, want to like try it out. So we would try things at school, and I think it was such a silly thing for what we lost our computer rights for. One of them was, I think they disabled command prompt, and we opened command prompt by like writing it in Notepad and saving it as .exe or something. And then we had like 2 infractions against us, and the third one is we weren't allowed to touch a computer. Well, I hit the space bar on a computer that was turned off at Nate's encouragement, and he did as well. And then we were called into the office and told we couldn't touch computers for a year. So like I've always had an interest in cybersecurity before there was such a thing really as ethical hacking. It was just viewed as bad, obviously. And I actually did an internship as soon as I graduated from high school. I interned at a company and did IT work for the summer. But yeah, I really did throw us under the bus. I did an internship for the summer. But then I took some time off because I actually spent about 10 years in pastoral ministry. So I got a master's of divinity, which is kind of like theology, history, and leadership all combined together. And I served in the church world in various capacities for about 10 years. But while I was doing that, I always did IT stuff on the side for the different churches. So I did a lot with live streaming, a lot with cameras, a lot with web design. So in some ways I had experience. I always did it on the side, but I never did it full time. Now, what eventually happened, without making the story too much longer, is when COVID happened, the church I was leading decreased to a point where it can no longer support me and my family. So I spent about a year working full-time as an IT support specialist, as well as full-time as a lead pastor, and it was exhausting. So I decided to jump into IT full-time. I think WGU did open doors. Having a bachelor's degree helps you get past that HR checkbox. But you can be in IT without a bachelor's degree. What I love about WGU is all the certs they give you. But most of the jobs I've had, I've got through networking. So I've only applied for one job, and that was my first one as an IT support specialist. I went from there to an IT support manager at a college. I didn't even apply for the job. It was word of mouth. It was a college I worked at and actually was a student at for my associate's degree. They reached out to me and said, "Hey, Tyler, we heard that you are interested in IT stuff. Do you want to come over here and manage the support center?" So I was like, "Hey, sure." And then after I was there for about a year, a friend of mine who I worked with at my first job reached out to me via Facebook Messenger saying, "Hey, we have an opening on our team for this senior cybersecurity role. I saw that you're interested in this stuff. Can we talk?" And I talked, and now I'm there, and now I have a job that's 100% remote. I work right here. I wake up in the morning, put on my pajamas, and go downstairs. So I think WGU is important, but honestly, networking and building relationships is probably more important because that's how I've gotten most of my job. So, sorry, that was kind of a big segue, but Papa Churro, hopefully I answered your question. If I can assist you in any other way, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, YouTube, Discord, even Facebook if you search for me, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have. Cool, man. Glad it was helpful. Let's dive back into this. I totally got us sidetracked, but that's good. So once again, if anyone else has questions about my journey or my experience with IT, I try to be an open book, so feel free to ask them, and I keep my eye on the chat, so I will pause and we will go on a tangent. We're already like an hour in and we're not very far, but that's okay. We got most nights, I can't say every night, but I'll say most nights you can find me streaming on here from 10 p.m. to midnight. I always did this stuff before, I just didn't stream it. So I figured, hey, if I'm doing it anyways, I might as well stream it and have people join me and we'll hang out together, make it a little less lonely. GetNet domain is similar to the Active Directory modules GetAD domain, but contains a lot less information, which can be better. Basic info such as the forest, domain controllers, and domain name are enumerated. Cool. GetNet domain controller, we can kind of guess what that is. GetNet forest, I'm going to try to go through this a little bit quickly. GetNet domain trust. And my guess is as we dive into this, we might reference back to some of this stuff, or I will reference back to some of this stuff so we understand what we're doing. Entering the breach. Okay, here we go. We're going to get some real hacking. We're only an hour in, but that's okay. Your attack team has run initial... I always mess up this word too. Reconnaissance. There we go. Reconnaissance on the target. Throwback hack security. They find that there are 3 machines that are publicly facing. Throwback prod for production, Throwback FWO1, I'm guessing firewall, and Throwback mail, a mail server. Your team has informed you that these assets are publicly accessible. It is your job to perform additional, why did they got that word in there again? Reconnaissance on these machines and find the way in. To accomplish this, we'll be learning to use the tool Nmap. Okay, this is going to start really basic, but I know it's not probably basic for all of you, and I want you to learn along with me. I'm going to switch over to root just because I like to. You don't need to be root to run Nmap, though. I'm going to rename this terminal. What Nmap does is this network mapper. It will scan a server and IP for open ports, and depending on what switches you add to it, it can scan for services, versions, and even vulnerabilities. Scanning the world with Nmap. I just explained some of this stuff. We can also support CIDR notation, so we can specify /24 to specify 254 hosts. We can specify how we want to scan the host using switches, and I already talked about this. SV determines service inversion. SC runs a script scan against the found ports. -P scans all ports. -V, one they don't mention is -A. Just throws everything at it, which is often what I do, but it takes longer. So here's going to give us an example. This nmap command is fairly stable. So let's walk through this. Nmap, we're looking for version of whatever we find on there. This is running a script scan against it. I don't know why it's not highlighting. -P is going to scan all the ports. If you don't specify -P, it scans, I believe, the 1,000 most popular or well-known ports. And -V scans in verbose mode, so it shows you as it's doing it, which I always like because I'm impatient. I feel like it's not working unless I see it working. This nmap command is fairly stable and will scan the entire network in a couple of minutes. You may need to specify the minimum rate to be lower as it affects the minimum number of packets at Nmap sans. If it's too high, it can miss ports or cause false positives. Do I need to like start any machines? Oh shoot. Oh no, it's going, I think. Usually when you do TryHackMe, you have to start the network, but it must be that just by opening and getting going, it starts it. So often when you do a TryHackMe box, you need to start a computer. TryHackMe doesn't generally support networks. You're usually just hacking one computer. What makes this cool is we have all these computers in a true Active Directory network. So I just want to make sure we were doing that right. Scanning the world with Nmap, blah, blah, blah. Identifying assets and finding the attack surface. So enumerating throwback prod scan. Let's go ahead and scroll up. Did it have the... Oh yeah, so it does have the IP? Perfect. So we see the IP there. I should probably just follow the way they do it maybe. I'll show you guys kind of how I do Nmap. So if I was scanning this, hard for me to see that. First, what I always like to do is if I am doing a machine, I like to add it to my Etsy host file so I don't have to remember the IP address. So let me just show you how I would do that. If we gedit Etsy hosts, we can add that IP address. So it's 10.200.34.219. And I think, Nate, if you're on this as well, do we have the same IP? I can't remember if these networks are shared among the people using it since we can vote to reset it. I'll wait to see if you confirm, but I'm curious if we're attacking the same actual machine on the same network or not. But I'm going to call this, we'll just call it prod dot we'll just do THM since we're on TryHackMe. We could call it like THB for throwback. We'll just call it THM, prod.thm. I'll save that, and that just saves time. They are shared, but I'm on a different network. Oh, okay, I got you. That makes sense. So if we ping prod.thm now, that didn't work. Maybe I typed the IP wrong. And sometimes Windows won't respond to ping, which might be what we're running into. So can we Nmap? And for... Oh, it could be the firewall that's blocking it as well. Maybe I should just follow this. Identifying assets and finding the attack surface. Enumerating throwback prod scans. When enumerating the Nmap scan, we find many ports open as well as a leaked domain name. Oh, hold up. So maybe we just need to scan the entire network. Is that what we need to do to follow along? Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. So let's just follow this output that we have right here. Nmap, SV for version, SC for script. P is going to do all the ports. -V is verbose. Verbose. And what was our IP? Is it 34? Let's see what we have. So yeah, .34. Okay. So if we did this, I suppose that would work as well. We'll just follow exactly how they have it there. Min rate 5,000. Okay. Nate, are you able to connect to these machines? Oh, I did the IP wrong, I think is my issue. Whoops. Yeah, I just did the IP wrong, I'm almost certain. Oh, now I'm messing everything up. .200-30. Okay, do I not have numlock on? I don't think I had numlock on. Let's start over. Maybe I need a new VPN back. Wolf. Oh, I bet you do to connect to the networks. Dude, good call. Let's jump back here. So I was using my normal VPN. I didn't even think that to do the throwback, you need to actually have a different VPN. That's what happens when I skip the stuff that I think is obvious because I do it all the time. Let's go and go to the access page and get our throwback. Yeah, so I've never connected to a network on TryHackMe. So usually for the machines, what I was using was my configuration file for OpenVPN. That's funny. Let's go ahead and download my configuration file. I actually want it on my Kali Linux machine, obviously. I could just transfer the files, but we'll download it on here. And we'll eventually get back to it. And let me just highlight for you guys the importance of community around you. It would have taken me Googling a while to figure out like, why the heck is this not working? I would have thought I was doing Nmap wrong. But Nate is doing this alongside of me. He bought lab access, so he knew right away what I was doing wrong. And so that's why I think when you do these things, it's good to do them in community. We are better together, and to always put your ego down, right? We all have areas to learn, and we always miss obvious stuff. I notice I always miss more obvious stuff when I'm live streaming and recording, but that's good. It helps us have humility, and just put away your ego and recognize we all have things that we need to learn as we walk through this together. Let me go ahead and download my configuration file. And there it is. Now I bet it'll work. Yeah, what up, Hunter? Holo is a pretty network too. So I did look at Holo. I think I started it a while ago. The only reason I chose Throwback is I want to say for the OSCP, and me and Nate did a YouTube interview on my YouTube. Nate took the OSCP and he failed it, but I think often you learn more through failure at times than success. And one of the things Nate said in the interview is to learn Active Directory. Now, OSCP initially did not have an Active Directory component. Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, but the newest version of the OSCP now has Active Directory on it with like 4 machines built into it, a domain controller, and then I don't know how the other machines fit into it, but basically he said, learn Active Directory. So that's why we are doing it this way. I think Holo might actually be more advanced. I think it's free for people who subscribe. But when I was just doing my sweet research skills on Reddit, they said Throwback is best for the OSCP. Holo is a little bit of an overkill, which tells me Holo, you're probably going to learn more, but it might be a little more difficult. So I will check out Holo. Maybe once I go through all my lab time for Throwback, we'll dive into that next. Let's just see if we can scan that. Look at that. So now we can scan prod.thm. You'll notice I saved to my Etsy host file. So what I often do, and I know what Nate does, which is probably a lot more efficient than mine, is he uses something called Auto Recon. And what Auto Recon does is basically what I do manually, Auto Recon does for you. Because what I like to do is I like to do an initial Nmap scan. I should probably do all the ports though, to see what ports are open. And then I take those ports that are open and I scan just those ports with more scripts, just for the purpose of saving time. Let's get back to where we were at. Okay, here's back to where we were at. So you'll see it's going to take a little more time to scan this because we're scanning all the ports, which is different. If you just recognized how fast this one went, I believe it even tells us it's probably scanning 1,000 most well-known, 1,000 total ports as opposed to 65,000 some ports. And I just want to point out to you, our first scan found this 5357. I'm guessing this one's going to find it as well. It's weird that it hasn't found it yet. But you'll notice that this first scan that we ran did not find this port right here. And it's often some of these higher ports. It's what they call security through obscurity, which isn't true security, but security through obscurity is simply hiding things, and that being a means of security. So they'll do like an HTTP web server that gives you like admin access to some network monitor. They'll put it on uncommon port. So if you just throw a regular Nmap scan at it, you're not going to see it. So it's always important when you do a CTF or even a real pen test to go for all the ports. Now, if you're doing a real pen test, there's probably better tools available. Or Nmap, you have to specify -T for threading to lower it so it's not so loud. If you just throw a regular Nmap scan at a company's network, it's going to be obvious they're being scanned, and hopefully the cybersecurity team will shut that down. So we got 2 minutes, 43 remaining. Let's just keep going through this while this runs its scan, because what this is going to do, so this is just, we're looking at all the scans that it threw. We're looking at production scans, mail scans, and firewall scans. So let's go ahead and back up. I'm just going to open a new tab here, and we're going to run this entire thing that they ran. so that we scan all those public facing servers, -v for verbose, 10.200. I think ours is 30.30-0, CIDR notation, min rate, 5,000. Let's see if that works. And it does. Oh, I thought it does. Oh, so that's obviously just specifying. It should tell us the IPs that are alive. Did I do that wrong? I'm just gonna check my IP. Oh, it's 34. Yeah, obviously I did it wrong. Come on. Like I said, I make the most obvious mistakes when I'm live streaming. I know people are watching. There we go. So you'll notice it's gonna scan those 3 machines because they're public facing, but it's hitting every IP there to get it. So anyways, while it does that thing, we'll just keep reading through the results here. So when enumerating the Nmap scan, so what they're doing is they're doing the scans we already did, but they're targeting one of those servers. We find many open ports as well as a leaked domain name. So we have the domain name here, and it wants us to find it ourselves. So we'll do that. I'll show you guys real quick how to target a specific port while this does its thing, because that's 44 seconds remaining. So this might actually show it to us. We'll just give that 44 seconds, and while it does its thing, let's go ahead and target the next one. So if we do nmap-p, well, actually, let's add all these to our etc host file, just to save ourselves some time. We'll call this 10.200.34.232. We'll call this mail.thm. And let's see our firewall 10.200.34.138. And we'll call this firewall.thm. Just so we know right away what we are. Oh, did I open this? Come on. I opened it as a low-level user. You can't edit that unless you're root. Let's go ahead and resave those. Now we should be able to ping both of those. Okay, cool. That should scan all the ports there. Let's open a new one. And that was firewall.thm. Oh, like I said, dude, when I'm live streaming, that's when I mess stuff up. Okay, let's just call this firewall nmap, mail nmap, and this was prod nmap. Okay. We have all of our ports here. Now what auto recon does automatically for you is what I'm going to do manually, but I'll show you the manual way. We're going to do nmap-p, and we're going to specify our ports there. So we have port 22, which is probably going to be SSH. 80 is probably some type of web server. Let's just run through these. 135, 139, 445, 3389, that 53, 57. And these are ones that I don't, these higher ones are ones I don't know. These are all common ones that I see. 49668. These are ones that we would not have caught unless we scanned all the ports. These higher ones here. 49669, 49673. And this was prod. Oh, and then we're going to do -A to throw all the scripts at it. That's going to check version and all that fun stuff. prod.thm. -V. I think I have all these switches right because I'm going off memory. It'll tell us if we don't. Okay, now we're going to scan all those services, and that's where we're going to find the domain. Let's check our Nmap scan over here. We got, what, 4 minutes and 13 seconds remaining. And you'll notice Nmaps take a while. So often when you're doing penetration tests or anything like that, while your Nmaps are running, those are usually the first things you fire off, and then you can dig into some of the results as they run. Generally, if I was not doing this like with a guide, I would see, okay, we got port 80 open, and I would immediately just jump to port 80 and start enumerating it, seeing what's there while our scans finish up. And honestly, I might still do that. because I think these scans might take a while. Let's just read through this. Throwback prod scans. When enumerating the Nmap scan, we find many open ports as well as a leaked domain name. We'll see that shortly. We also find that port 80 is running IIS server. That is good to note to visit and enumerate later. That's already what I said, and we'll see these options in a second. Enumerating throwback mail scans, we find that throwback mail is a Linux box running Apache server on port 80, running a login page. And that's the other thing I pointed out. I would jump to port 80 right away and see what's there. And then we have the firewall scans. When looking at the scans, we see the box is more than likely running a pfsense firewall with a public pfsense login, which is obviously a bad way to configure your firewall. And we'll see that once we eventually target those. Because we're looking at, I know what ports this is looking at, I'm going to save us some time. And here's what we're going to do. We're still going to let those ones finish up, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to target these specific ports it's asking about, and it will speed it up the process. So if we do -p, we're going to do 3389, and that we'll do all out of it. We'll do prod.thm and .v. This should go a lot quicker, and we'll be able to answer the domain questions. Okay, so here's the information we're looking for. And that's the power of Nmap. So what is the domain name? And we have it right here, of course. It's all caps. I don't think it matters in TryHackMe, but throwback.local. What is the HTTP title of the web server running on Throwback prod? So we're going to do Nmap-p. We'll scan port 80. And then prod.thm-v. Oh, I did that wrong. I forgot my switch. And it's going to scan the service, and we'll be able to answer that question. We could also obviously just navigate to the HTTP, but I want to show you how Nmap works. You'll notice that we have the title right there, Throwback Hacks. How many ports are open on Throwback Mail? Well, that still has 2 minutes remaining. 1, 2, 3, 4. As of now, there's 4. And look at that. We know there's only 4. So we're actually going to stop that. Once again, save ourselves some time. And we know through TryHackMe that there's only 4 ports there. We already found them all. So let's go ahead and target those 4 ports. And we'll let that do its thing. Actually, you know what I want to do? We need to make a directory for Throwback. And we're actually going to save our scans to, well, this is mail. So we'll call it like mail Nmap. In Throwback, let's go ahead and make another directory called Nmap. So I have a feeling we're going to be throwing a lot of stuff in here. We'll do that. And we're going to specify that as mail.txt. We know that's going to be our Nmap mail server. That's going to run its thing, and then it's going to create a mail.txt file in our Nmap folder, just so we can refer back to it. So if we do have a question or want to relook at our scans, we don't have to keep re-enumerating the machine. What service is running on Throwback? Well, they told us. Oh, that was just finishing up. And I'll just show you that Nmap file. So we have that. Now we can cat mail.txt, and you'll notice we have this saved now. This is for our mail server, and we hit all the ports. So for the mail server, we have SSH open. We have HTTP, that's Apache 2.4.29. Pretty sure that is outdated. 143 IMAP. I think I've done a box with IMAP before as well. Arnall, I don't know what that is. Dovecat IMAP D. Okay, cool. What version of Apache is running on Throwback Mail? And I just told you I think that's outdated. And that is going to be, is it asking for Apache? Whoops. I think my computer's bugging out with the, I think OBS, Twitch streaming, running Kali Linux and running Chrome is a little bit hard on my computer. Just looking at the way they have that. Okay. Everything seems fine. Okay, good. Because every once in a while my mouse and keyboard gets really laggy on my end. I mean, it might just be, not terrible. I'm using 65% of my RAM. That might be the issue, but as long as it's good for you guys, that's all that matters to me. Okay, let's finish up some of our Nmap scanning. I forgot to save this to an Nmap file, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do the old school copy and paste. This is for production, so let's go ahead and copy that, and let's cd. Let's go that home cd throwback cd nmap gedit prod.txt. Not ideal, but whatever. That'll work. We at least have it saved that way. And so we had production that we needed Nmap on, mail, which we finished, and firewall. So let's go ahead and Nmap P. We have port 22 for probably SSH, 5380.443, and that was firewall.thm. Don't forget our .a, firewall.thm. We're going to output that to throwback, nmap, and firewall.txt. Oh my goodness. Like this then. Firewall.txt. Fine. I suppose I made the directory as root. I could just change the file permissions, but whatever. Nmap-p 225380.443-a firewall.thm firewall.txt. Did I finally do it right? I blame Windows 11. You're probably right, Nate. That probably is my issue. Hey, Nate, out of curiosity, while this does its thing, when you are scanning boxes, do you save it in your Etsy host file, or do you just like scan the IP each time? When I watch other people on YouTube, I see both ways. I don't know the reasoning behind doing the IP, but maybe there's something I'm missing by always doing it in Etsy host. Do you have a way you do it? Okay. I'll wait for Nate to respond because I know the video's a little bit delayed. We have firewall, mail we got done. I just scan the IP, which bites me later sometimes. Gotcha. Yeah, I used to do that as well, and then I would constantly have to re-pull up TryHackMe to remember the IP, and then I saw, it's probably John Hammond, save it to his Etsy host file, and I was like, man, that's genius. I'm going to start doing that as well. So I just stole that from him because it saved me time. I just want to make sure we have production and mail. Perfect. Okay, exploring the caverns. You and your team have run your scans, and it's now time to visit the web servers and see what services are running on them. Your team decides it is best to enumerate the production, mail, and firewall server. Sometimes on Windows hosts, it can make or break the scan too, having the correct host name. Yeah, I've noticed that as well. And I don't remember what box it was, but you had to actually go into your Etsy host file and update it 1 or 2 times to a correct thing that you found in a flag to get more access. It was some like Office, like it had an Office theme to it, like from the TV show. I think that was on Hack the Box, but it was a really neat box. But yeah, you had to configure your Etsy host just to get it to work in the first place. It is important to enumerate what is running on a web server further than just a scan, to get an understanding of what services are on the network and what could possibly be used as an attack vector. Enumerating the production server. So let's go ahead and just go to that while we read through this. Now, if sometimes they'll put the web server on a different port. So if you want to connect to a different port on HTTP, you're going to do this. And let's say they're running the web server on 8080, because that's common sometimes. You would connect to it that way. Now, this is going to fail because it's not running anything. If you just do HTTP without the S, it's automatically going to connect on port 80. And that should pull up this. So I'm going to make this full screen. And let's just read through this before we go back to that. there's a few things that I do when I do web server. One is directory busting, which I have a feeling we're going to do this. This is through tools like GoBuster, Derby, Dirbuster. And what it basically does is it has a dictionary file and it tries to connect to, say, like robots.txt would be an example. And it tries to connect to all these different possible directories. And if it returns a valid code, it lets you know, hey, this is something you should explore. So I'll often do that. The other thing I do is what I just did. I check robots.txt, and the reason I check robots.txt is often in robots.txt, how that works is it tells things like Google, here's what I don't want you to show. So it'll often show like an admin login area you can find in the robots.txt file. Another one is sitemap.xml, if I remember right, and that will give you a map of the site if the file is there. You can use that for enumeration to get kind of a lay of the land. The other thing to look at is the page source. Just reading through the page source to see if you can find anything interesting here. Sometimes the page will be referring to a place where JavaScript is stored, and if that JavaScript is communicating with an API, you can read through that JavaScript code, and it might give you an idea of a weakness in the way it's connecting with the API or something hidden that you can find. I have a feeling it's going to guide us through most of this, but these are the things when I am doing a box, those are the kind of the things I immediately do when I realize a web server is on there. And then after that, you can kind of click around, see what's going on. You can use Burp Suite, which I'm not sure if it'll get into that here, but Burp Suite's also a powerful tool. But it's good just to click around and learn about what is going on here. So what we can see here is they are a security company. They secure what matters to you. If we learn more and start today, we have, this garbage text. They give us their 4 things. I remember reading the history on this, and I don't remember the history anymore, so obviously it wasn't that interesting to me. View our projects. We have the team. Now, this is actually really important when you are enumerating a box or even doing a pen test. If you have team or a directory of users, you can often use this once you can figure out like how do they set up their users. So right, maybe they set their users as S Winters, J Davies, H Gongo. We now have a list of usernames that we could possibly use, and we could save it to a file. We could use it for brute forcing. We could use it to try to get SSH creds, but then we just have information gathering. We're getting usernames by looking at their website. Got partners, projects, clients. We give an idea of what they do. We have pricing here. Maybe there's a database. We have a page we can sign up. We can communicate. Maybe we can do some type of injection attack through the communicating stuff. We have links here. I wonder if I go to contact, so it just brings me there. We have thbsecurity.com. Once again, these are all just things that as you do machines in different boxes, these things will stick out to you. Where is those sign up? I want to see what happens if I click sign up. So if I click sign up, what happens? Nothing happens. That's just a dead link. Okay. So those are the things I noticed. Let's see if TryHackMe notices similar things as me. Oh, my computer's frozen. There we go. Windows 11 almost failed me there for a second. Okay, upon initial access to the production server, let's just back up. We can see it's a company website advertising themselves as a private penetration testing analysis firm. Further inspection of the website reveals a list of employees, location of the company, and an email address. We saw all of that. I didn't catch the location, but we'd see it if we kept looking. These details can be important to note for later attacks and enumeration, especially if you're doing like a phishing attack, social engineering. It's good to have that information. Enumerating Throwback Mail's mail server. When enumerating the Throwback Mail web server, we find from the source code, and remember I told you when I go on a web server, I check the source code right away. Before we read further on there, let's just do it ourselves. So we have a login page here. Could be vulnerable to something like a SQL injection. We have guest access. Guests who required access an email can use the following. I just wonder what happens. I don't know if I typed that right. Let's just copy it. Look at that. So we allow guest email. So we got a guest email account. We could use this for a phishing attack. We could probably spoof their domain. There's some cool stuff we could do with access to that. Let's just back up though. Like I said, I usually check robots.txt, and we can do that. We notice this in this source folder. So even if we backed up, well, we don't have anything there. So if we do like source, let's just go all the way back. Well, here's an information disclosure. So you'll notice good web design does not expose the server information when there's an error. So if you're doing a pen test, this would be a low-level finding. It isn't like an exploit, but it is information gathering because an attacker can then use this to exploit it. One example from actually a job I had is I was bored one day, and my job was not in any way cybersecurity. But I was going through, I believe, the sitemap, and I found that PHP info was exposed. And PHP info is a file you create when you first set up PHP, but you are instructed to delete it once everything's running. But if you don't delete it, it has a lot of information there about your internal server. And I reported that to the system admin and said, hey, you may want to delete this. Here's why. And I think if you actually found that on a site that offers bug bounties, that's like a $50 or $100 bug. I obviously didn't get paid for it because I was an employee. But that's what that is. It is an information disclosure that this can then be used by attackers. They would take that, they would Google vulnerabilities like that, and then you could look through, is there any vulnerabilities? I know 2.4.49, I'm pretty sure that's vulnerable, yep, to path reversal. I'm not sure about 2.4.29, but you kind of get an idea of how an attacker can use information as seemingly innocent as that to enumerate what is going on. So let's go ahead and look at the source. Okay. So we have this. We have an interesting comment here. If self does not equal top, try. If document domain doesn't equal top, blah, 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 throw click jacking security violation. Please log out immediately. This code should never execute. Exception should already have been thrown since a security violation. In this case, even try to access top document domain, but it's left here just to be extra safe. Okay, that's cool. You're probably not usually going to find this. I'm guessing that is what it is referring to. So I want to see if there's anything interesting here. We see there's a pics directory. We could maybe check that out. Okay, let's jump back to TryHackMe. We find us running squirrel mail, which is right there. So that would be another thing that you can look up, right? So if we were doing this, we were typing squirrel mail vulnerabilities. You can do it that way. Otherwise, in Kali Linux, you can do search exploit, and we could search for squirrel mail. And you'll notice we have vulnerabilities here. If we identify the version, we can use these vulnerabilities, pull it down. There's different ways that you can find vulnerabilities. The cool thing about this is you don't need to have a connection to the internet because we have search exploit database built in Kali Linux. So if you're working offline and you have the information that you're enumerating, but you don't have an internet connection, you can still enumerate different vulnerabilities this way through search exploit. Let's jump back to TryHackMe. When viewing the banner, we find that there's a guest login account that anyone can use. We will need these creds for later. Okay, so that's something we would want to take note of. Let's go back to that. Oh, let's go back to here. And let's just grab those creds. CD. And let's make directory mail. We'll just call it mail. And let's echo that to guestcreds.txt. What the heck? What did I break? Oh, it's because of the exclamation mark. I need to like... Is it this? Yeah. That's the escape key. That should have done it. Yep, there it is. So we save that since they say make note of that. Usually I would be saving this to my OneNote, but just for the sake of time, we'll just keep saving it to this stuff, especially since we have all this to refer back to. Okay, when moving the banner, let's look at the firewall now, is what it wants us to look at. Immediately upon visiting Throwback, we can tell it's running a new version of pfSense. So before we even do that, let's see what we can find on our own before we read through what they're going to show us, just for good practice. Security risk. Accept the risk. I like to live dangerously. So yeah, right away we see it is pfSense. We could look up pfSense vulnerabilities. Those are probably highly dependent on the version of pfSense that it's running. So we can say check pfSense version. Maybe it is in the source code. So it's an Etsy version. We probably don't have access to that. We can maybe look at the license. We have this login page. Let's go ahead and look at the source, see what we can find. Oops. Let's just make this full screen. Okay. We have the CSFR magic token. I don't know what is this. Just the logo class? Here's our login field right here. And we have JavaScript here just saying that the browser supports cookies. I wonder if we could use some type of cookie hijacking, anything like that. Okay. Cool. Let's open TryHackMe back up. Dumb thing about this is, here we go. Okay. It's running a newer version of pfSense. As this firewall is accessible to the public, we can assume that it is an outside firewall designed to keep attackers out. Yes, we can probably assume that. Your team informs you that it is your decision of what target to attack first. All can be good attack paths. They suggest attacking Throwback Firewall 01 first. However, the decision is yours. Well, it's always good to listen to your team, so we will listen to them. Who is the CEO of Throwback Hack? So here's we're doing some open source intelligence, and if you remember, we saw that guy there. Summers Winters. Where is the company located? Is that an about? Nope. Team? Nope. Work, price, probably contact. Great Britain. What is the guest username on the mail server? And you remember we grabbed that down. TBH guest. What is the guest password on the mail server? Boom. Web shells and you. All right, guys, we're at 11:30. We got 30 more minutes. I say we've done good work so far, right? We've learned a lot. A lot of this was clearly introductory type stuff, but I'm glad we're into some of the hands-on enumeration right now. And let's do some web shells. Your team has informed you that the pfSense box may be running in default configuration. So we might have some default credentials. So you could probably just Google pfSense default credentials. Use this information to your advantage and gain access to the pfSense configuration panel before moving on. Let's just try it ourselves, shall we? Let's go pfSense default login. And go here. The default creds for pf is username. Okay, yeah. Admin. pfSense. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. And you would be surprised at how often companies, system admins do not update default creds. They have so many things on their plate, and they just assume it's not going to be updated. I'm not going to give any other details, but I know of multiple places right now with default credentials on things that could be abused. So it seems like this was not realistic, but it really is realistic to have default creds. So we have our firewall logs here, which they see in my, it's probably Nate's IP right there attacking it. And he said he's on a different network though. We have firewall logs. I wonder. What's this do? Oh, so widgets. I wonder if we could set up a shell through a widget. I bet that's what it's going to lead us to do. pfSense configuration panel overview. After logging into the pfSense configuration panel, we are greeted. Sorry guys, I'm getting distracted by OBS. I'm recording this through Twitch, but I could have recorded it through OBS as well. At least I hope I'm recording it Twitch. Hopefully I don't lose all this when I'm done. That would kind of suck. I'll learn from next time though if I do. After logging into the pfSense configuration panel, we are greeted by a dashboard showing the status of the firewall. That's right there. This configuration panel gives us a lot of information and a lot of power. We can view and alter the way that the firewall acts as well as monitor the status of the network. To use pfSense to our advantage, we will look for a command prompt or web shell to execute commands and get reverse shell on the machine. And like I said, I have a feeling that's going to be through one of these widgets, even if you just do pfSense reverse shell. I'm guessing since we have authenticated access, we could easily find a script that would give us reverse shell. This looks like something that might do it. Anyways, traditionally, web shells have represented to some extent a means to an end. Now let me, maybe they'll explain this. Maybe they won't. I answered this question my last live stream. It was actually a test stream, but someone asked like, I was trying to set up a reverse shell with Python, and they said, so what exactly are you doing? So I don't want to pretend like everybody knows what I'm doing. When you do a shell, when you hear people saying they popped a shell or they have a reverse shell, essentially what we're trying to do is get Firewall to communicate back to our machine so that we then have a terminal window. So if we open terminal, it's just like this, but instead of being on our local machine, it's almost like an SSH connection to our victim. And then we can run commands, we can enumerate as if we were sitting in front of that machine, in front of that computer. So when we're trying to get a shell, that's what we're trying to do, is get that connection so we have terminal access to that computer. Often it's a service account like www.data is an account you'll often get if you get a web shell. It's a low-level service account, but you can use that to then enumerate to a user and then enumerate to a privileged account and then maybe enumerate to an admin is often how it works. So traditionally, web shells have represented to some extent a means to an end. However, they can also be used in more permanent scenarios. Common implementations include simple command execution, simple reverse shells that can be caught with Netcat, and more complex Meterpreter shells. Meterpreter, we'll learn more about that. That's a sweet program for attacking. Provided that you are not starting with something like a Meterpreter shell, you will likely move into upgrading shortly thereafter. One important note, websites typically run as a low privilege level user. I already told you that, www.data. So be prepared to move into privilege escalation following gaining your shell. Finding an attack vector. In order to execute commands in a web app, we first need to find our attack vector that executes these commands. The web shell can be a command line interface directly integrating to the web server, a limited functionality shell, or a PHP command execution shell. In the case of pfSense, it can execute commands in a command prompt as well as PHP commands. Can we find that? Let's just glance through these things. Where do they find this? Execute PHP commands. Well, is it up here? Whoops. You have to find it to answer one of the questions. Oh, I will find it. I'm getting tired, though. I don't know if you guys can tell. This is like, we're now an hour and 40 minutes into this with no breaks. And so my mind is getting a little less sharp. My eyes are getting tired. I have a feeling it might be in diagnostics. We can ping. We can reboot. About to pop the first shell. Nice, dude. Here's what we're going to do, is we're going to look up pfSense PHP command. Using the pfsense PHP shell. Using the PHP. I want to use the web GUI. How do I access it through the web? Well, I might. Can I just. I might be able to connect that way. Recording and playback. I'm trying to use PH. Can I SSH into it? Wasn't SSH open on the firewall? I'm just curious. Isn't there firewall? Oh, cat firewall. .text. Oh, so it's using the actual key. Never mind. I can't just do it that way. All right. We need to figure out how to do the... Should just kind of glance through this. If this is a real pen test, or even a box that I was working on, I would go through each one of these things just to see, like, what do we all have access to? Right, anything with sudo, so I can assign permissions. That's cool. Has to be like somewhere in system, I'd assume. Is it advanced? Oh. Can I set the password for SSH? I'm gonna set the public key only. SSH has authorized keys, and it's for each user. Oh, look at that. We have some users we can access. So we have the admin, who's a system administrator. Do they have SSH access? That's what I was trying to log in as, and it didn't work. But we have this other user who's also an admin. We're going to set their password to password 1234, because that's very secure. Password 1234. Their name is EC2-user. Let's go ahead and copy that. Admins, user certificates, authorized SSH keys. So we have their key right there, so we could also use it that way. This is some interesting stuff. So can I SSH as that person? Oh, if I typed it right. So do I actually need to use the key? Well, that's interesting. So if we wanted to SSH, we could actually set it up so we can SSH as admin or this user on the firewall. But we're already running the user right now. We're running the admin right now. So we just need to figure out how to run PHP commands. So pfsense web GUI PHP command. I don't want to use it directly. Console menu basics. Automate. Web becomes unresponsive. Does not restart. Update pfsense on the command line. pfsense configuration tutorial. I just want to know how to run the PHP commands. What's this? Oh, it just defines it. Nate, I'm about to make you tell me where you got to the PHP command at. I feel like I'm missing something really obvious. Like, I think I could SSH as them and then do it that way, but I'm pretty sure that's an overkill of what I need to do. PHP shell and pfsense tools. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back. Routing, interfaces, firewall, services. If one of y'all see it on a stream, point out what the obvious thing is that I'm missing. or else I'm about to just make SSH work for myself. It's right there. Is it? Oh my goodness. It is right there, isn't it? It's just called command prompt. Oh yeah, as soon as I clicked it, I looked over and saw you said that. See, this is what happens, dude. Hour and 45 minutes into this with no break. This is why I should be doing like what is the Pomodoro method or whatever it's called, where you work for what, 50 minutes and take a break or whatever. That's to prevent this from happening. Taking breaks is good. Okay, so in order to execute it, blah, 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 blah. So we should be able to execute PHP commands. So it should be as simple as finding a PHP reverse shell. I know, dude, the constant talking, part of the talking can be helpful because it forces me to explain my reasoning. But I'm also like trying to talk. I'm trying to explain stuff as well as think through kind of what I'm doing. And then I've been talking now for an hour and 46 minutes straight. But let me show you guys how a PHP reverse shell works. Often you can upload this to a server. We should just be able to manually copy and paste it. What we need to change is the IP. We want to make that our attacker IP and the port. Now we know that a firewall is running, so we can try a non-standard port, but if it doesn't work, there's a chance the firewall is blocking it. You can try to go around that, unless it's a layer 7 firewall, which I doubt it is on here, which inspects the content, but we could like specify port 80 so it looks like normal web traffic and do it that way to get around that. But this might be a good stopping point. Let's see if we can get shell, and then we will call it a night. So we'll copy and paste that. We'll paste it in here. Well, before we do anything, we need to set up a listener. You don't have to be a root for this, I don't think. Netcat, NVLP. I don't remember what all those switches stand for, but this is what we're going to open the port on our machine to attack it. We're going to call it 1337 because we are elite. Some of y'all don't even know what that means, but I thought everybody knew what that meant, and I learned when I was working at a college. Some of you youngins don't know what 1337 means. Y'all need to do your homework. We're going to put in our IP, which mine should be 10.13.10.98. I can see it up there. And let's go ahead and do our port S1337. Let's execute. Line 1 appears to have generated an error and has been highlighted to the 4 responses below. So we may just have to let's do a one-liner PHP shell instead of the big code through there. Single line PHP script again shell. This is going to be the way to do it. PHP shell execute get. I want a PHP reverse shell. There we go. Here's what I'm looking for, I think. PHP reverse shell. Oh, this is to execute the back door. Pony shell. This is a one-liner that assumes. Okay, here, let's try this. Obviously, this is going to be RIP 10.13.10.98. Our port right here. It's going to be 1337. It's going to execute shell, which should be fine because we said this is a Linux machine. Line 1 appears to have generated an error and has been highlighted the 4 responses below. Note that the line number in the full PHP nested code and eval errors may be incorrectly pointed. Syntax error unexpected. Encapsulated string. Temp user code. Oh. Well. Okay, let's look at this real quick. If I go like this. that broke it. Let's back up a little bit here. We'll get it one of these times. Oh, so this is a download the PHP reverse shell and execute it. I mean, that's possible. I don't think this is going to be the easiest way. Let me just go back real quick. Once again, I think this is for me doing this for like 2 hours straight. I'm missing something obvious. The first shell. Oh, pen test monkey will work. Oh, you mean my first shell that I had pulled up, the big one. Gotcha. Maybe I should look closer at the syntax error. Just need to set my IP again. Whoops. 10.13.10.98. Let's go ahead and get our port in there, 1337. Okay, syntax error, unexpected blank, expecting end of file on line 7. What? Oh, if I go like that, you want me to do that? No. Ah, I think I got it. Nope, no I didn't. Never mind. Well, this usually does it when you have a PHP shell. Yeah, so I took the Oh, I'm close. I bet I have to remove the closing tag. Do I have to go like that? Let's try that. I may have to refresh it. I may have broke it. Usually, you guys will notice when you do a box. Oh, there we go. Operation timed out. When you do a box, when you're doing a shell and it like loads like that, like it's constantly refreshing, that's often a good sign that you can execute a shell command too. I bet you could probably get a reverse shell that way about it as well. You got root? Nice. At least on the firewall, I take it. Yeah, I know. I should. Something's not working with my shell. I'm pretty sure I missed something obvious. Let me just... I don't know if my IP would be different. Oh, those are my other ones. 10.13. Oh, here's what I think I'm missing. I'm doing the wrong IP. I think I need to do this IP. Oh, maybe it is a firewall. You're right. And that's even what I said myself is, hey, if this doesn't work, it could be that the firewall is blocking me. Let's try that. Good call. Thank you for reminding me of my own words. Now, in a real environment, this is like a easy way to bypass firewalls. Now, firewalls are called layer 7 firewalls, which what that means is they inspect the content of the traffic. So even if you're trying to do it over port 80, the firewall is going to detect this is not normal HTTP GET request type traffic, and it's going to stop it. But often in capture the flag type environments, this is a good way to bypass it. Just in a real environment, most firewalls, at least in my experience, are now that layer 7, which comes from the OSI model, application aware firewalls. But let's go ahead and see if this works using a more common port. Change this to port 80 and execute. Dude, I think I'm using the wrong IP. I'm using the IP. I think I need to use, yeah, I'm using my normal, like, TryHackMe IP, but I'm on networks. I need to do my .31 IP. That's my problem this entire time. Watch this. I bet this will cause it to work. Let me just refresh that. Yeah, I know. Being on the network, yeah, being on the network throws me off, dude. I'm so used to like the old way of TryHackMe. So I bet if I remove that PHP and if I use the, you know, the correct IP that goes with the network, what threw me off is it has my IP up there, which usually works on TryHackMe. Oh shoot. But because I'm on here, that's what's causing issues here. So I bet it wasn't even the firewall. I bet I could use port 1337, but we'll keep it at port 80 just because that's what I set it to already. Look at that. We are root, at least on the firewall. I'll show you guys a few things to do on boxes, and I have this saved here. Upgrade shell. I think that's what I called it. Let's see. Come on, OneNote. Basically, you can upgrade the shell if there's Python or whatever's available. Oh, well. We'll worry about that next time. We do have access here. You'll notice that we are root. So we can run commands. We can look around. We can see what we all have here. We have this person. We have this ECT user person, which we found that when we were looking around on the firewall. We have their SSH stuff. Let's just see if we can finish off this section, and then I need to work tomorrow. What username was used to access the configuration portal? Admin. What password was used? pfsense. What menu contains a command prompt? Was it system or something, or diagnostics? Oh, I was right. Okay. I think it's a good spot to try to end it. Try it with I guess we can. We could see if the firewall's blocking it. Let's go ahead and try that just for proof of concept. Let's see if 1337 works on this firewall. And that will tell us whether or not the firewall was actually blocking it. I think the entire time was just me using the wrong IP. Using my other TryHackMe IP. Yep, so even with 1337 it works, so it is not blocking it based on port either way. So that's a good spot. We are root on the firewall. We did a reverse shell. I learned stuff. I learned that 2 hours of working straight through. It's easy to miss obvious stuff. It's good to slow down. And hopefully those of you watching, you learned something, you enjoyed the experience. And I don't know if you guys can tell, my voice as we have gone has got rougher and rougher. Talking for 2 hours straight. So we had a consistent audience through this, like anywhere from 5 to 7 people. Nate did it along with me. So I would just encourage you guys, I don't get any money through TryHackMe, but I want to just show you real quickly how you can follow along. Even if you missed it here, you can rewatch this both on Twitch, and I'm going to post it on YouTube. But if you go to learn and scroll down here, it is this Throwback Network. And at $60 for 3 days, only $2 a day, you probably spend more on your crappy coffee from Starbucks. Buy it, and then we can go through this together, and you can do it alongside of us. You'll notice if you were on the stream, I was talking back and forth with Nate because I know he was doing it, and he helped me out as we were doing it. So if you want to follow along, drop the money. It is worth it. TryHackMe, if you're watching this, y'all can throw some money to me, or at least give me some free network time because I'm advertising you guys. But hey, once again, thank you for all of you who joined on Twitch. Thank you for those of you who watch this later on YouTube. Once again, I'll be streaming most nights. I can't say every night, but most nights after my kids go to bed from 10 p.m. to midnight. And we'll see if we can work our way through this entire thing. We're 17% of the way through. We'll see what happens after a couple more hours. And I have 30 days of lab time. I'm pretty sure we'll knock out this room or this entire network in the next 30 days. So I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks again for watching. Peace.